Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you are listening to a Radulich and Broadcasting premiere podcast, Damn You Hollywood. And here's your host, Robert Winfree. Yay!
Yay. We are back. We are here. And we, of course, are more than happy to talk about all the terrible, terrible decisions that go on in movie making. And it's going to be one of those episodes. For the record, if we all sound a little bit groggy, we are recording this early in the morning to accommodate a double recording schedule. We have this episode, and then later this evening, we'll be dropping our review of Bill and Ted Face the Music, so you'll have that to look forward to. But we do this at noon, Mark's time, and for those of us that don't live on the East Coast, that just makes it earlier and earlier in the morning.
Yeah, I'm still waking up because we got hit with a thunderstorm early in the morning, and I lost like an hour's sleep listening to hail pounce off of my skylight. Started to sound like reggae after a while. Donka-dinka-dinka-donka-dunk.
That's racist.
It is?
Look, if you can find racism anywhere if you want to, I imagine. There's people who make a career out of it. So tonight we are reviewing The New Mutants. Yeah, there's a lot to talk about here, believe it or not. Very little of it to do with the movie itself. But there's some stuff to get into, so my co-hosts for this particular episode, first up, from Honeysuckle Rose Creations, perpetually trying to get a handle on life as a corgi grabs it and shakes it all over the place, Alexis Hejna.
Good to just go ahead and get the nuts about corgi butts thing out of the way now. Thank you, Robert.
And the casual to my fan, the butt to my stuff, the conspiracy to my theory, Mark Radulich.
Hello,
how are you, Mark?
How are you? I'm doing all right. It's my day off today, so there'll be no pants swearing, just having a grand old time.
I never assumed you wore pants when you were at work.
Oh, I have to wear pants at work, I've been told.
How many times?
More than I'd like to admit. But less.
That is the correct answer for this. All right, so I'm not entirely sure where we want to start even with this. Turkey. Why
don't we go ahead and talk about the history with this film, because this is a very this movie, I almost feel a little sorry for it. This is a movie that really got fisted repeatedly because of circumstance, reshoots, and this movie has been bounced around at Fox Studios for, I think, at least 3 years.
Yeah, at least 3. Okay, that's as good a place to start as any. Again, we are discussing the Fox, now mostly Disney, product, The New Mutants, which... Oh, man. Where do you even... Again, it's kind of a where do you even start with this thing? So
start at the beginning, and then when you get to the end, stop.
Fair enough. Well, it all started back in 1726. No, the original date for this, I shouldn't say production, development of this project began, around 1415. And look, development is usually a longer process than production. They eventually started filming in 2017, wrapped up in September or so. The general thought was that they were going to release the thing in April of 2018. For those of you that remember. I remember because Mark put it on the schedule.
Seriously, folks, we've actually been taking a poll here at the Radulich and Broadcasting Network about whether or not this movie would ever see the light of day, whether it would just get streamed onto Disney Plus, or if it would actually get a theatrical release. And I could be wrong, but I don't think any of us ever actually put any money on this thing getting a theatrical release. I think we were all pretty shocked.
Well, funny thing about that is, and none of us knew this at the time, but contractually, Disney's not allowed to skip the theatrical release on this one. That might be that might be the case for all the 20th Century Fox films that they inherited with the buyout. That they all have to have at least some time on the in the theatrical release area. So
it almost certainly does have something to do with the contracts that they had to sign when they bought this out, because I'm not saying this movie should never have been a major release, but by the time we got to, where we are now, the only reason not to just throw this thing on Disney Plus was, again, legal mandates.
Not allowed.
Yeah, you get the feeling that the studio just basically gave up, especially after the reviews for Dark Phoenix came in. Hey, you want to hear us all cry and talk about how that movie hurt us? Plug, go check it out. That we do have it up on the Radulich Broadcasting Network website.
Yeah, you can find our Damn You Hollywood for Dark Phoenix, which is a terrible movie. But the release for this was initially postponed due to Disney beginning acquiring the 20th Century Fox production company. And that took a while and affected a lot of things that were getting released. New Mutants is hardly unique in that respect. Then it started getting pushed back further and further, sometimes due to avoid conflict with other properties they were trying to release, sometimes due to other decisions, and
there were a lot of reshoots too. This movie was essentially seems like it was rebranded at least 3 times before it finally saw the light of day.
Well, it was rebranded. Funny thing about that, it never actually got reshot. There are 0 reshoots in this movie.
I think it's they were alternate cuts was the issue.
Yeah, what they did, again, they cut things differently, but they didn't even get to do the kind of normal... Look, reshoots at the moment have kind of a bad name, especially from those of us that pay attention to some stuff but don't actually know how I should say don't know how. Who don't deal day in and day out kind of with the nuts and bolts of movie making. Reshoots are very, very common. It's very common to get to the end of a project, have your first screening, and then go, okay, we need to redo a couple of things. Nothing major. I mean, if you want to know...
They're usually built into the shooting schedule and the budget.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's usually a window saying, okay, once we have some notes, we're going to fix a couple of things. The problem is, and I could be wrong here, but I think in recent years we've seen an epidemic of movies doing a lot more reshoots much further after they should have been done, hence why we get a lot of movies where characters clearly look different or, gee, guess what I'm referencing here, have to have their mustaches CGI'd off.
I was thinking more about the Rise of Skywalker, where they were reshooting that movie up to the point of release.
Well, my head initially goes to, of course, the Force stick, where poor Kate Mara had to don a blonde wig for the reshoots because they did them so long after the initial production had gone away that her hair was no longer blonde. She'd changed it for another project she was working on and was not going to change it back. And I mean, again, we kind of make fun of Cavill for not being willing to shave his mustache.
No, he was told not to. He was strictly told not to by whatever production company was doing Mission Impossible.
Yeah, he was not allowed to. Like, no, we're not going to put a fake mustache on you.
Well, they were in the middle of shooting. They couldn't put off filming to wait for that stupid thing to grow back.
Yeah.
But I do think it makes my point that we all 3 of us thought of a different movie that had this problem.
Well, again, just in the interest of fairness to, again, most of the time you wrap production and then somewhere built into the generalized schedule is, okay, we have a time set aside for some reshoots, some pickups, some stuff that we want to touch up, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's very, very common. I mean, and to be fair to reshoots, if you've ever seen the Mortal Kombat movie, the 2 best fight scenes in that entire movie are reshoots. After the original production was finished, at screenings, test audiences kind of went, well, we'd like actually more fighting in our martial arts action movie. So the guy who played Liu Kang actually wound up directing essentially the totality of the fight between Johnny Cage and Scorpion and his fight with Human Reptile. Neither of those were in the original script. And there were talks of reshoots for this, but again, due to any number of issues, apparently they never actually reshot anything. So what we're dealing with, again, it would be differences in editing, which can be massive. None of which actually mattered, because by the end of this long, sad tale from conception to execution, what we got was what was originally shot and originally put together.
I want to say that between Disney and Fox and the production team, there was arguments over how graphic should the horror elements be. And one group wanted it to be more of a horror movie, one group wanted it to be less. Then they were like, why don't we go for PG-13? The problem, I would say the biggest problem with New Mutants was the production team had a very focused goal and idea of what they wanted this film to be, and you had not one but two studios interfering with the original vision. And then I think it was a matter of like, well, we're holding on to this thing for a while, we just got to release it.
Yeah, for the record, this makes a lot of sense once we get into the movie itself. The original kind of inspiration for this was apparently a young adult style of movie.
Doesn't hurt that to say if that's what they wanted. They got the perfect director. We got Josh Boone, who gave us The Fault in Our Stars. Have either of you? I actually haven't seen that, but I know how much everyone raved about it. Have either of you seen it?
No.
Nah.
Okay, I forgot who I'm talking to.
Yeah, so there was a very specific direction. They wanted a young adult kind of horror, but lighter on the horror aspect kind of thing. And then after the wild success of It Chapter 1, again, 20th Century Fox kind of went, we could cut this to be more of a straight horror movie. So they changed the trailer to be that first trailer we got, which is much more straight horror. And started kind of, re-editing the thing to be more in that vein. Then it got pushed back from release date to release date, trying not to conflict with other things. Because, originally it was like, hey, how about we not conflict with... I think the original one was okay. Yeah, it was originally supposed to be released in 2018. They pushed it back to February of 19 to avoid conflict with Deadpool 2, which wound up moving up in their schedule for I can't remember what reason, but it did. Then it turned out that, February of 19 was going to was give or take the release date for Dark Phoenix, and then Dark Phoenix wound up getting moved from its date of August 19. Sorry, Dark Phoenix was around August of 19.
It moved from like November to February, and then February, I think, to the summer.
Yeah, it got almost a whole year of delay.
And then, Disney acquires 20th Century Fox, and by the end of it, I imagine there's some poor executive looking at this giant albatross around their neck going, screw it. You now just shoving the baby into the pool. It either sinks or swims, and we all move on.
And, of course, we have the reason why every movie this year got delayed, COVID.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this was supposed to come out April of this year, but by that point, mid-March, all the theaters closed. We went into shutdown, and everything got put off. I think even since then, it's had one or two different changes. But either way, they moved it. At this point, it was being moved to coincide with the reopening of theaters, and then it became this weird game of chicken where they're like, well, we'll reopen when you release the movies. Okay, we'll release the movies when you reopen theaters. Like, all right.
It essentially becomes a catch-22. The theaters don't want to open until they've got some big major movies and things are safe enough for their customers to come back in larger numbers because they want to make more money. But the studios don't want to release until they know that there's going to be enough people filling the theaters to make a difference.
So other than some of these, like Goonies and Ghostbusters and Jaws and whatnot, other than those, this is the first major release movie in theaters in America. I know Tenet. I know Tenet was international, like came out before that. But I just want to ask, like, how was your movie-going experience to see New Mutants? Was it weird going back into the theaters? I mean, I know for me, first of all, the theater felt like a ghost town. It was like, it's a weird thing because, like, some of the things that the theater used to do, the way it used to operate, had changed or were blocked off. So, like, the line for the Stubbs members was closed off. There was just one line. There was no ticket taker. I had to go to the customer service booth. There were no cooler drinks or anything. Like, you couldn't get, like, a bottle of water or anything like that. That all was shut down. But you could get popcorn, and you can get... Weirdly, you could get... what do you call it? Soda from fountain soda. Which, when I went to a theater a couple months ago to go take my daughter to go see the Avengers, even that was closed off, and like a worker had to do it for you. There were movie posters for movies that won't be out until next year. With this year's date on them. It felt empty when I first walked in there, but by the time the movie started, my theater was pretty full for New Mutants. What about you, Alexis? How was your experience?
I purposely booked an early showing on Saturday. I was with two of my best guy friends, and they all said, and we all agreed, let's go to an earlier film, so we knew that the theater would be more empty. There were no ticket takers. They had those automatic screens that you can, the touch screens that you can punch in. They had put those in. I think the theater we went to a different theater than I'm used to. It was closer to one of my other friends, so he didn't have to drive much. I think they had at least one or two of those screens before, but now that's all they had. Thankfully, I had ordered the tickets online, so I just flashed my phone and they scanned the QR code. There was one or two people working behind the refreshment counter. It's interesting how they have to give you everything. There's no more stands where you can just get the lids and straws for your soda or get the butter for your popcorn. We all got individual small popcorns, and one of my friends said, I want extra butter. She gave him 2 plastic ramekins full of butter. And he just put those on his popcorn when we got in. I think there was maybe 3 other groups of 4 or 5 in the theater as a whole. Thankfully, they were all we all were a couple of rows apart. We took it upon ourselves to social distance. It was very weird how we were told to keep our masks on unless we were eating and drinking. So we were trying to time it. It's like, okay, munch on popcorn, drink some soda, mask on. 20 minutes later, mask off, munch on popcorn, drink some soda, mask on. And unfortunately, I'll admit, it does kind of take you out of the movie when you actually have to think, wait, do I really want to, because you don't want to just lift your mask and eat a few pieces of popcorn and then put it down. You want to take it off and enjoy yourself for a while. And it really just kind of ruins the moment when you're thinking about that.
Yeah, I just left my mask off. I had, I kind of treated the movie theater the way I treat the restaurant. Once you've got food on the table, you don't have to keep, you can keep your mask completely off, and you can keep it off the entire time you're there until you're ready to leave. And so I was like, well, I'm sure this operates the same way, and so that's how I handled it. What about you, Robert? How was your trip to the movies?
About what I normally did. You guys know I tend to go early because it's usually cheaper.
Was the experience different than normal?
Not really. It's nice because the seats around me have to be vacant, so I'm a guy who I like the experience of the theater. I also like very few people to be sharing it with me.
Right.
So, no, this felt... Again, this wasn't out of... Most of the movies I go to are sparsely populated to begin with. Yeah, they're not printing tickets. I actually had a minor issue with getting mine because I ordered them online, but brought the wrong number with me to potentially claim them, so it wound up being thankfully not a huge thing.
Would you bring the one for Catholic high school girls in trouble with instead?
No, I didn't bring the confirmation number for the tickets because they kind of assume that everyone just has cell phones at this point, and I don't. So,
right.
it wasn't all that different. Got to the theater, not very many people there, but again, I went I'm annoyed that now I don't know if this is some kind of mandate or just from a governmental level or just a policy that the theater's enacting, but they're not showing anything before noon. So the earliest show I could get into was, I think, about 3.
Most of the theaters around here usually don't show anything that early, except maybe like kids' movies on some weekends. I know that a handful of films have a special, early matinee for little kids where they'll show animated movies and stuff.
It wouldn't surprise me if that's just again a corporate thing, where they looked at it and went, we never get enough people coming in to movies between, say 11 and 1 anyway, and we're just not going to pay everyone to be there that much earlier than normal. So,
all right, Alexis, was there anything else you wanted to talk about as far as things not dealing directly with the craft of the movie? I know you mentioned some stuff offline that you thought was worth talking about regarding the movie and whatnot.
Well, like I said, I did want to discuss the history of this film because I feel that it is important to establish what happened to this movie before it actually got released. But that all got thrown out of my head on the fact that, Robert, you seriously don't have a cell phone?
Nope.
Wow.
Look, I'm not willing to buy one because they're stupidly expensive, and I'm not going to pay some company, $50 a month so other people can bother me whenever they feel like it.
Okay, side note, I'm assuming none of us actually are familiar with the New Mutants book.
I read some New Mutants comics when I was in high school and whatnot. I actually had the first appearance of Cable, so I must have been reading some New Mutants. I know I was reading X-Force when that came out. I was not familiar with the Demon Bear saga.
Yeah, read nothing related to this property.
I remember when New Mutants came out when I was younger, and I remember how popular it was. But as I've stated before, I didn't really get into reading comics until I was an adult. So, knew of them, never actually picked up the book.
All right, do we want to get into the craft now?
Yeah, again, I imagine at some point in the future we're going to get the behind the scenes story of this movie, and it will be much more interesting than the movie itself.
It'll be like that documentary on Apocalypse Now.
I was going to say more likely the one on the island of Dr. Moreau, because boy, what a train wreck that movie is.
All right, so
I'm happy to do this if you. Let me do this. This is one of my things.
Oh, yeah, you got to do the plot synopsis.
Yeah. I'm a little rusty, despite doing this last week. All right, so we open with our kind of central character, Danny Moonstone, as...
Star.
Moonstar. Is it actually a star or a planet that she's named after?
Oh, my God.
All right, so my apologies. Moonstar.
Hey, you wake us up this early, Mark. You know he's going to just seriously poke at you with a stick.
I have a stick right here, actually. I'm kind of fiddling with it because I like having something to do with my hands when I do this show. So we wake up with her, and her village on her reservation is wiped out. She is rendered unconscious. She wakes up in the care of Dr. Was it Reyes, I believe?
Yep, Cecilia Reyes.
Who tells her that she's the only survivor of a F5 tornado that wiped out her, her hometown, and then tells her that she's a mutant. What do you mean I'm a mutant? Well, my superior can detect mutants, so yeah. And he says you're one, so you're here now. And she is introduced to some fellow young mutants who are all here because they pose a danger to themselves or others with their lack of control over their powers. So we meet Sam Guthrie, slightly better known as Cannonball, played by Charlie Heaton, who everyone knows from Stranger Things. Ilyana Rasputin, whose Russian accent wanders as much as Charlie Hunnam's accent does in Pacific Rim.
Glad to know I'm not the only one who noticed that.
Yeah, that was bad. Played by Anna Taylor-Joy. Roberto Bobby DaCosta, I have a rant about this when we get to it. Otherwise known as Sunspot, who was last seen in X-Men Days of Future Past, where I don't think actually said anything.
And had much darker skin.
And Rain Sinclair, played by Maisie Williams, the fairly typical, somewhat repressed lesbian Catholic schoolgirl werewolf.
Actress formerly of Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah, I haven't watched Game of Thrones, but I knew her name was familiar. That's our little group of damaged misanthropes. It's not going to sound like there's a lot of plot here as I go through this, because there isn't. We get to know all of them and why they're here and their personal baggage. Guthrie, because Cannonball's ability is to rapidly accelerate his own body. He was working in a coal mine in Kentucky because...
What else are you going to do in Kentucky?
It's more true about what else you're going to do in West Virginia, but fair enough. And during one of his shifts, he just apparently had some kind of mild panic or anxiety attack, got really claustrophobic, and somewhat spontaneously accelerated himself. And accelerating yourself in the close quarters of a coal mine is a really bad idea. So apparently he killed everyone else on the crew he was working with, including his father. Ilyana was apparently somehow the victim of child trafficking. It's because of the rating for this movie, they fall short of actually going into, hey, straight pedophilia, and more, certainly child abuse. They downplay the potential sexual elements of it to, again, maintain their rating, I think. DaCosta accidentally burned his girlfriend to death because one of the triggers for his power activating is apparently sexual arousal, and yeah, he gets really, really hot. And
I said it was kind of like what we see with the Incredible Hulk, that you get his heart pumping too much, you get him too excited, and he just kind of loses control.
Sure, we can go with that. And Rain, who went to a Catholic priest with her when she knew she was, a mutant, to request help or an exorcism or something similar. The priest freaked out, and in self-defense, she wound up killing him. He's not actually a priest, which is one of the annoying things. When they show him, when he manifests due to Danny's ability, he's a cardinal, not a local, not a local father. Why I know the difference in Catholic regalia is beyond me at the moment, but I do. So that's our group of misfit outcasts. these people all bounce off of each other because Ilyana is an insufferable bitch. Rain and Danny strike up a lesbian romance because studio notes. Guthrie is inflicting a lot of self-harm because he blames himself for, killing his father and that entire work crew.
He's also trying to figure out how his powers work and land safely.
Yeah,
we get a scene early on, which frankly I think is the only good scene really establishing powers and motivation, where he's tethered to the ground and he's trying to building up speed, and he essentially just keeps bouncing off the ground like a tennis ball because he can't land.
Yeah, he is Indiana Jones. I didn't know you could fly a plane. Fly, yes. Land, no.
Good reference.
And Roberto washes dishes.
And Roberto is posturing desperately to save face from all of his internalized shame, because we just have to have a dude bro who they can then say, hey, look, we're pointing out all the flaws of toxic masculinity. These characters are unbelievably bland. I'm sorry, I'll promise I will not stay this long. They're bland, they're caricatures, not characters, and they were focus grouped. That's what this feels like.
I was pretty insulted with so much of the advertising comparing them to the characters from The Breakfast Club. I'm like, no, you have not earned that.
Yeah, there goes my outro bit, but okay. The group, again, they bond, they bounce off of each other, they antagonize each other, they speculate as to what they're doing there, when they'll leave. The entire facility is being covered by a force field, which is what Reyes does. They speculate that they're being groomed to be X-Men, or to at least wind up going to Xavier's School for Gifted Youngsters, but James McAvoy was like, nah, bruh. I don't want anything to do with this. It eventually is revealed, I'm going to save my rant on this for later, that this whole thing is being run by the Essex Corporation, which means actually nothing to the vast majority of the few people who saw this movie. Which is part of my rant on that, why I think it's a major flaw. But during the course of the movie to this point, all the characters have been having nightmares, and then it starts building to straight up manifestations in the real physical world of their internalized problems. This is what Danny's power is. She takes what's in your head, usually your deepest, darkest fear, and manifests it in the real world. So,
I'm pretty sure that's not exactly how Moonstar's power, or Mirage, I think her name was Mirage in the comics. I'm pretty sure that's not exactly how her powers worked.
Not exactly, but they don't go out of their way to explain anyone's power in this, so,
Like I said, the only one who got a decent explanation of his powers was Cannonball in the scene that you previously mentioned.
Yeah, I would agree with that assessment. So, again, Sam has a nightmare where he is kind of a vision, not really a nightmare, where he is attacked by the crew that he killed, including his father. The scorched corpse of DaCosta's girlfriend shows up and attacks him. The cardinal that tried to exorcise Rain Sinclair and labeled her a witch shows up.
And actually interacts with her, so we know these aren't just illusions.
Yeah. And finally, Ilyana thinks of them as the Smile Men. In the CGI templates from that terrible Slender Man movie show up and chase people around for a bit. This all comes to a head when Reyes is told by her superiors to take some more samples from Danny and then kill her because they don't believe her powers are controllable. When she is nearly killed, they try to euthanize her via lethal injection. Her personal series of whatever she's afraid of manifests. In this case, it is a giant demon bear that proceeds to murder Reyes, assault the entire rest of the group, and is only defeated at the end after she comes to some kind of internal peace, and then Crocodile Dundee's the thing to sleep.
There's a reference I did not see coming.
Our group then leaves behind a written note for their principal who is watching over their morning detention, saying that they are not just a freak, a loser, an outcast, a nerd, raging bitch, I'm not going to be surprised if they make DaCosta gay at some point, because that's just what these movies do, and a couple of budding lesbians. Yours sincerely, not the Breakfast Club, the New Mutants. Yeah, that's us, as they walk off into the sunset.
Can we do that again, but slow it down a little bit more and with more feeling?
No.
Okay.
I was actually saying, like, wait, do you seriously want another take that you're going to edit into the podcast, or is this a joke?
Is it? Look,
yeah,
if Mark was willing to edit and do that, yeah, I would. I would happily lean into that in that way.
Nah, the only person who actually edits any of these shows, unfortunately, lets you and me go on like hour-long diatribes and then releases the extra audio as a bonus.
We love you, Jesse. All right, so where do we want to start with this turkey? Let's carve it up.
This is so slowly paced. I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say I was not feeling great when I went to go see this, and so my patience level may have been at a low, but I think it's fair to say this is a slowly, poorly paced movie. The acting is at the level of, like, Netflix original or CW. I understand that this is a takeoff of the comic, and without having read the comic, I don't want to be too unfair or too negative, but the idea that everything was... First of all, I have a major problem with the setting. This is supposed to be a psychiatric hospital, and it's run by one person, and there's no orderlies.
How does a movie with a $67 million budget have a cast of only, well, essentially just 6 people, five kids and 1 doctor, and 1 location?
I mean, nobody else works there. They have nobody to serve. Nobody there to serve food. I know they had DaCosta like peeling potatoes and washing dishes the various points of the movie, but I can't. It was hard for me to take the movie seriously when the movie itself isn't serious. If this is supposed to be a psychiatric hospital, where are all the people that work in a psychiatric hospital? Even if this is supposed to be like isolated to just these 5 kids, there would still be other people who work there, not just because. How does Alice Braga maintain control over things? Does she just walk around with a needle full of Haldol? Like, hey, you know. And the thing of it is
she can isolate them in, as she does when she tries to kill them all at the end. She can just isolate all of them in force field bubbles, but I knew you would bring this up. That's why I didn't when I was doing my synopsis, to just go, hey, look at this.
It was the thing. It took me out of the movie for one thing. I don't. When there's as for the lesbian angle between Moonstar and Rain, I was like, it felt forced. It felt like shoehorned into the movie because it's 2020 and that's the way, I know, 2018, and that's the way things are. But it didn't feel natural. The two of them have no sexual chemistry. I got nothing out of that. The movie is bland. It looks... I know they were going for horror, but you know, someone compared this to Nightmare on Elm Street 3. Nightmare on Elm Street 3 is colorful, at least. It's graphic.
And has some good scares.
Has some really good scares in it. This is bland. The color palette is like 2 or 3 shades of gray, and that's it. Until you get to the very end, which is just dark. I know, Alexis, you didn't think it was that bad, but I really hated this. This was not a fun experience for me at the movies. This felt like, and I feel bad because like this was apparently Boone's vision. This was the first cut of the movie, and
no amount of reshoots could have saved this.
Well, I'm wondering how much in development he was told, don't go crazy with the horror elements, and so this was the best he could do. Like,
I tend to think this was his vision. He wanted the horror to be light rather than...
Well, either look, this is one of those things where either you need to go for it or don't do it at all. Because
I agree. Like that's one of my major criticisms with this movie. It's half pregnant on like 3 of the different things that you need to do to make any of the directions they could have taken this successful.
It kills me that even that when they finally decided to let Boone have his original cut and ease up on the horror, it's still marketed so much as a horror movie. Even the poster that actually came out with the release, the one where you've got the 5 characters and where the letters line over their faces, you see skulls. That's scarier than anything in this movie.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
No, I'm not coming to this movie's defense. I'm not. I commented on there because you guys saw it before I had a chance to, and the network chat was flooded with crap.
Well, it is crap. This is not a good movie.
I know, and I walked out saying, okay, I'm not going to say it's as bad as the level you two were, because I still have nightmares from sitting through Dark Phoenix, but this, and I'm sorry, it's not as bad as Dark Phoenix.
Oh, I disagree. I think Dark Phoenix was better than this.
Oh, no. You were able to enjoy Dark Phoenix more because things went boom?
Yes, correct.
It is not a better movie than Dark Phoenix.
I have to watch Dark Phoenix again, but you're right. Between the train sequence and just the level of stupid violence, there was at least things happening in that movie that were interesting as opposed to this one.
Yeah. Dark Phoenix, you can at least walk away with that saying that was so horrible that it sticks with you. This is bland. It is bland. It is boring. It is underdeveloped. Actually, this is exactly what I felt like. I felt like somebody wanted this to be the first season of a TV show and just crammed all the highlights of 9 episodes into one movie and then threw it on the air.
Yeah,
tell me that this didn't feel like an insanely rushed TV pilot.
No, I can buy that. I can absolutely buy that. And the budget was more in line for a TV show. I'm going to say a couple of positive. I'm going to say, scratch that. I'm going to say maybe one positive thing here. Visually, the casting is all good. Everyone looks how they're supposed to look. So some of the costume design is on point, sort of. Look, I've never been institutionalized. It was a near thing a couple of times, and I certainly know people that have. If you're dealing with people whose mental health you are concerned with... Sorry, that was terrible grammar. If you're people whose mental health... Sorry, I don't want to go down the grammatical hole there while I try to work that out in my head. I'll apologize for it being bad. There's certain things that you don't do. One of them has to do with allowing them access to any place, over 2 stories off the ground. Because, they might kill themselves. There's what clothing you're allowed to wear. There's a lot of stuff like this, especially since we're supposed to believe in the initial iteration of this that Danny is suicidal. If that's the case, everything about her is handled improperly from a procedural standpoint. Charlie Heaton is the only one who actually does anything of note with his character in this movie. And that is very... And I say that just because his accent doesn't wander and he gets it right.
Don't forget, he's also an English actor.
Yeah, for a British guy to get that kind of... I'm not going to go too deep into this, but a Kentucky accent is not just a quote-unquote Southern accent. There is range amongst Southern accents. Someone from parts of Louisiana... Someone from Texas does not sound like someone from Louisiana, does not sound like someone from Kentucky if you spent anything approximating a bit of time with all of them. I mean, even within states, there's differences. A Cajun accent is not the same as a New Orleans accent, for example. Someone from Alabama doesn't even necessarily sound like someone from Georgia. I've known people from both of those states.
Hey, I live in Missouri, and I have to remember that you got to remember I can hear the difference between an Ozark accent and a Texas accent. There is different levels. Yeah, no, he got that Kentucky, the twang of the Kentucky accent very well. Him, and I'll say Maisie Williams. Again, she's also English. I thought her Scottish accent was pretty good.
Yeah, I'll buy that. Wait, isn't the character supposed to be Irish?
Was it Irish or Scottish?
Hang on, I think she's Irish.
Okay, maybe it was Irish, and I was just thinking Scottish.
Scottish. My mistake. I just tend to more associate devout Catholicism with Ireland than with Scotland, but I don't know. I might be incorrect on that front.
Fair enough. No, I thought that those two were pretty good in this. And for the record, I am glad to see these two actors getting more roles now that Game of Thrones has ended and Stranger Things is on hiatus. I really am glad to see these two making more or getting more acting jobs.
Yeah. So there's elements of the casting that is pretty good, and some people make the best of what they can with what they've got. Again, Guthrie's self-harm makes sense. He actually did something that he feels unbelievably guilty for and is having to process that. Fair enough. Sadly, he is, relegated to extreme background character even in a six-man show. I've got to get this out of the way when it comes to DaCosta.
It's all yours.
I don't know why. Maybe this is just me. Okay, let me start with that. This might just be a personal thing, but I'm really, really sick of everyone saying, "Hey, let's have this character be having a Latin character," and deciding, "Hey, Brazil's got a huge population. Let's make him Brazilian." Now, to be fair, this character I think has always been Brazilian, but
Afro-Brazilian.
Yeah, and then just applying Spanish-speaking stereotypes to them. Spanish-speaking naming conventions, Spanish-speaking accents. Now, he doesn't have any kind of accent here. I don't know why that is. They never actually go into it, but he doesn't.
The actor is from Brazil.
Then he really should have known better than to go along with a character being named Roberto from Brazil. In Brazilian Portuguese, a name in particular that starts with an R is not pronounced like an R, it's pronounced like an H. This annoys the crap out of me when people get it wrong, because it's a really, really obvious thing and a really, really easy fix, believe it or not. Either lean into it and pronounce it the way it's supposed to be pronounced, or name them something that doesn't start with an R. I yelled about this when we talked about I think it's Fast 5 that's set in Rio. And the villain's name is Reyes something or other, and I wanted to pull my hair out. That's not how that works. That's not how that language works, and you're unbelievably overly genericizing this for the sake of your own laziness. Stop it. As far as him as a character, I mean, he's a giant whatever. Again, I'm shocked they didn't turn him into a closeted gay guy after all of his posturing about women. That felt like something that they wanted to do and then just decided against.
I will say, I'm pretty sure that line when he sees Ileana attacking Demon Bear and he says, "I'm going to marry that girl." That anyone else pretty sure that was 80 yard.
I'm pretty sure that was we got a Sigourney Weaver in Galaxy Quest moment there. For those of you who haven't seen Galaxy Quest, there's a scene where they come around the corner and see something in the bowels of the ship. It's a bunch of pistons coming together that they have to navigate. And she very clearly says, "Well, F that." They dubbed that over to avoid a harsher rating, to screw that. But they kept the shot on her face, so you can very clearly see what she actually says.
All right, so everything else about this Monday, about this movie, I think we all agreed that it was bland. We all agreed that it was... I think we all agreed that it was poorly paced.
Yeah.
That the acting there was problems with.
I have two more. I'll try to be brief about these. Well, three technically. At the end of this movie, I had told you guys in our group chat when I went to see this, because Mark had said I hate this movie, and if Mark hates a movie, I know kind of where I'm going to land on that, with very few exceptions. If Mark has no patience for it, I will want to commit arson. I said at the end when I got back, one of you asked me, well, is the theater still standing? Because I had said, if you hear about a theater burning down in Utah and a crazed man on the loose, it's probably me, and you'll know why.
Yeah, that was me that asked, did you burn it down?
I told you I was too busy laughing at the stupid CGI on the bear to commit arson, which is fairly accurate. That thing looks awful. It's just awful.
That it does.
The writing of Ilyana Rasputin's character, in particular, annoys the crap out of me. Because if you're going to present a nuanced character, okay, you weren't here. If you want to present a character that is, again, a raging bitch at the beginning, and then we go on a journey with, okay, I can buy that. Here, it's no raging bitch, and then, well, she was abused. She was abused a lot as a child. There is no person, and now we're just supposed to go along with her still being a raging bitch. I'm sorry, that is poor writing. That is unbelievably poor writing. I absolutely refuse to retroactively justify a character or a person's unbelievably shitty behavior because something terrible happened to them. You were a victim, yes, and that's a terrible thing. And it doesn't give you anything approximating justification to behave the way that she's behaving.
Can I ask something about... Oh, I'm sorry, when you're done. There's something I do want to bring up about Ilyana and what we see of her backstory.
Only thing I wanted to say is there seems to be a bit of a thought growing in, I don't know, the artistic world, or if this is a cultural thing, that if you're a victim of anything, then somehow everything you do is justified. It's a load of crap. It's an absolute load of crap, ethically, morally, and logically. And it is, in fact, my biggest concern over the upcoming Candyman movie. That they're going to turn the Candyman into some kind of anti-hero avenging angel entity instead of the murderous supernatural being that he's supposed to be, because black people. That is my only fear about that movie, is that they're going to fundamentally misunderstand how that character as a villain works, because you can be a victim and still be a villain, and that is for some reason that's kind of a nuance that seems to be lost. Anyway, you were going to ask, and then I have a last thing that I wanted to bring up.
All right, it's about the Smile Men. I loved your comparison about they just probably used the model from the Slender Man movie. Now, when I saw this, the thought that came into my head was that these Smile Men are all very creepy looking, very skinny, long fingers, disproportionate heads, and they're all wearing masks. The theory I had in my head was that while they probably did wear masks while they were assaulting her as a child, they were not actually monsters. We see a lot with victims of abuse, especially children, who kind of they let their imagination manipulate those who have attacked them into scarier creations. And I kind of had like this idea that these were just normal guys, but the way Ilyana saw them as a child, she remembers them as monsters. But then I started looking more, and they're like, nope, they were otherworldly beings, and she was actually assaulted by real monsters. And I was just like, you guys just took a potential... One of the few actually could have been good elements of this movie, and really screwed it up.
Wait, seriously? I was on the same track you were. They've actually come out and kind of confirmed to whatever degree that, they were actually monsters.
Yeah.
Wow. That is unbelievably stupid.
Agreed.
Okay, last thing I want to bring up, and this is a major flaw in the writing, I think. This has to do with the fact that this whole place is being bankrolled by the Essex Corporation, because that's supposed to be a big reveal at some point. No one knows who's keeping them here, who the superiors of Reyes are, and again, the kids are all kind of like, oh no, it's totally going to be we're going to be X-Men. And then there's a reveal on the screen that this is being run by the Essex Corporation. This is the way that whole sequence is structured. This is supposed to be a big, scary, not necessarily scary in the pure horror kind of way, but kind of a shocking reveal about what's going on here. That only works if anyone in the audience actually has context for it. Here's the grand total of the Essex Corporation's history in movies, in the X-Men movies. It's two things. One, they're referenced in Logan. I'm not sure there's a lot of crossover in the audience going to see your crappy young adult, tween-light variation on Mutants who saw Logan.
Plus, Logan was so long ago at this point. I mean, granted, it's a couple of years, but a lot happens in a couple of years. People remember Wolverine dying in that one. They remember the cute little girl. They don't remember the quick allusion to the Essex Corporation.
And it shows up in, I believe, a post-credit scene for Dark Phoenix.
Apocalypse, my
mistake. Apocalypse. Which I'm going to bet most people who saw that movie did not stick around to see. They booked it out of that theater as quickly as possible.
My friends and I were talking about it, and I just said, I'm convinced some producer at Fox really, really, really wanted to push Mr. Sinister as a villain for this movie series, and they had absolutely no clue how to go about it.
I'll go you one better. I think there was some executive at Fox that really hated the X-Men and all the Marvel properties and didn't want these movies to happen.
I wish that were true, Mark. Because if there was an executive in charge making that call, they might not have happened.
Because he wouldn't be the only executive. They were like, well, we bought this thing, we need to use it. But the incompetency at Fox that led to its eventual downfall and purchase by Disney still baffles me to this day.
Yeah, my last thing on this. When it comes to Mr. Sinister, Mr. Sinister is not... They are not building to Mr. Sinister correctly, in my opinion. Some villains, some large villains, work as that force in the background that you see glimpses of, but you never really get to know all that well until it's time for them to step out and, mess stuff up.
Like Darkseid and Thanos.
Yeah, those two being the very obvious ones. Thanos shows up in a handful of small scenes, delivers a few lines of dialogue, until it's time for his movie. And he is the protagonist of Infinity War. And until then, he's in the background, more or less. He's referenced a few places. We know he's there. We know he's doing stuff. We get allusions to how powerful he is. But he doesn't, do a whole lot. Because once he gets in motion, everything he does is of such monumental consequence you can't downplay it.
It's a real apples and oranges comparison, though, don't you think?
Well, hang on.
I mean, like the Fox situation, these were disparate projects that were only needed together by the fact that they are the same IP. You had different executives, you had different studio notes. There was no unified vision. You can't really do Mr. Sinister as Thanos with the Fox properties. It was an entirely different animal. Oh, and then they also got bought by Disney.
Well, there's that, and then there's also the fact that Mr. Sinister is not the X-Men's Thanos. Apocalypse is. Apocalypse is supposed to be the big guy who, once he gets going, affects everything. And they botched that by rushing his movie, which we've talked about when we talked about that movie. Mr. Sinister doesn't actually work in that context. Mr. Sinister is more of a Bond villain, by which I mean you see James Bond's villains.
He is the author of all your pain.
Well, take whichever one you want. Point being, we see them a lot. We may not know the full extent of their plans. There may be a twist at with what they're doing, but we see them working in the world. We see James Bond interact with Goldfinger or Le Chiffre several times. We get a sense of them. That's what Mr. Sinister is, and you can stretch that out over multiple movies. But you can't throw little breadcrumbs leading to him and then he is suddenly the big bad. That's not how that character works. You do kind of need to see him a fair bit, and trying to play him differently than that, I think, is a categorical mistake. He's not that kind of villain. When you fight Apocalypse or you fight Thanos, you can't overcome them. They're so overpowered, you need an army of other overpowered characters to take them down. You don't need that with Mr. Sinister. All you need is Cyclops or anyone who shoots energy blasts like he does, because they stop his regeneration. That's it. And he's a formidable opponent, but it's not so much because of his physical prowess, because of his intelligence, his conniving. And you need to see that in action. Otherwise, you get an I'm the author of all your pain moment where you kind of go, you just retroactively shoehorned him in here for reasons. And it's a giant error in the writing of this. And I think that was the last thing I had to say about the movie in terms of craft.
All right. Let's get on to the money. Here we go. Whoops.
Here comes the money.
Here we go. Money talk.
Here comes the money. Money, money,
Dollar, dollar. Dollar, dollar.
I've been doing the show long enough, you would think I would hit the right button. All right.
Mark, not that long ago, you stopped an entire podcast from recording rather than simply pause it. We understand.
On a budget of $67 million, this thing's made about $10 million so far. It's really strange that it needs to get to $140 million in order to have made this a worthwhile project, and it's not even going to get to. It might not even get to $60 million.
Almost certainly not. Yeah, this thing
hasn't made as much as My Spy or The Hunt.
Between theaters having to essentially look, any theater is going to give up at a bare minimum half of its capacity because they're going to place people in every other row. Then, depending on the number of people that go in a party, you have to have so many seats available on each side. There's the logistics of this thing making money in that respect are going to be difficult. The fact that, a lot of people are still kind of leery about going to the theater to begin with is still going to rear its ugly head. And let's face it, this movie had so much baggage going into its release that most people were going to look for any excuse not to see it.
Well, we do have a change in the worldwide box office gross. Tenet creeped into the top 10. It's currently at number 9 with $53 million. Everything else is pretty much the same.
I can't wait to see that movie because I really enjoy Nolan's movies. And in all seriousness, take a moment and kind of appreciate the monumental task he set himself of an entire film whose premise is people doing things backwards. But
Well, I figured you're just looking forward to actually seeing a movie that's potentially good.
that too.
It would be nice. It would certainly
Mark,
break up the monotony.
Mark,
Yeah.
you're going to hate it.
Probably.
Look, I
But I'll
can't...
judge it fairly.
Sure, but in all seriousness, what was the last Nolan movie that you saw that you enjoyed?
The Dark
Because
Knight.
I know you just haven't seen a bunch of them.
Yeah, I didn't like Inception.
Yeah, because you're weird.
Yeah, I don't think I've met anyone who didn't like
I
Inception.
like Dunkirk.
Did you actually see Dunkirk?
Yeah, we reviewed it.
I didn't review that with you.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, it was 1917 I reviewed with Andrew. They're both they're similar war movies.
But yes, I dragged myself to the theater to go see Dunkirk, and I liked it just fine.
Okay, fair enough.
All right, so we have Tenet coming up on September 3rd. We're not doing anything for the next couple of weeks. There's stuff coming out, but nothing that we're gonna. I think the next thing that we're.
Well, I think Tenet is next for us, right?
Yeah, Tenet's next.
Well,
technically,
Bill and Ted Face the Music is next.
Yeah.
And then Bill and Ted Face the Music is later today, and then Mulan, and then Tenet. So for the month of September, there are movies in theaters, just nothing that we're going to review. The next movie we're going to review on this show is Wonder Woman, which comes out October 2nd.
Ugh.
By then, I'm sure New Mutants will be in theaters for as long as it contractually has to be, and then it's going right to like Hulu or something.
Wherever they are contractually obligated to put these streaming things for the next until that contract runs out. Yeah, this. And to be abundantly clear, anyone who decided to just wait for this to come out via streaming, I don't blame you one bit. You made the right call.
Yeah, I mean, unless you're like us, you're just dying to see something in the theaters, whatever the newest thing is, go see it.
I wasn't dying to see this.
I know you weren't. Is it worth a trip to the movies? I only say it's worth a trip to the movies because I think it's worth it to go to the theater to go see movies. I think it's we had this conversation back when Bloodshot came out and everything got shut down, that my fear was that people would give in to the temptation of just watching everything streamed at home. I mean, we watched the new Bill and Ted at home. We watched it as a family Saturday night.
Speaking of Uggs, Bill and Ted.
You'll get your chance tonight.
I know.
So it's, I don't want to see theaters go away. So when I say go see New Mutants in the theaters, it's for the theater's sake, not for the movie's sake. Movie sucks. All right. Anything else about the money? Anything else about the current state of film?
I don't think this is going to. There might be people who overreact to this as the canary in the coal mine. I don't think this is the canary in the coal mine for theaters being open at this particular point in time during the pandemic.
No, I think the real canary in the coal mine will be Wonder Woman. If Wonder Woman does well and people are willing to brave the theater, then I think that tells us where we are. I think if Wonder Woman does poorly and people do, because people just refuse to go out, I think that's more of a window into what's going on in this country in terms of people being, braving crowds and whatnot.
Since Wonder Woman isn't coming out until October, that also does assume that we don't get a resurgence of COVID cases in conjunction with flu season.
There's a lot of factors into what's going to happen by then. For the record, though, I know that most of us will be planning on seeing this matinees, early showings, possibly during the week when we've got a better chance of the theater being more empty. I mean, Robert, I know that's what you usually do. And for the record, if it's a movie that I don't care about seeing with a crowd, because I do like going to the used to like going to premiere night with a lot of people if it was a really big, exciting movie to see. Marvel movie, Star Wars movie, the list goes on. So.
All right. Let's get to the final part of our show here.
Oh, boy.
Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
Matthew Monagle of The Playlist. If New Mutants is any indication, the future is bright for young adult horror, even when that future is being carved out of the husk of billion-dollar properties.
No. Get bent. Even by young adult horror standards, this is not good. You, sir, know nothing of which you speak when it comes to what good horror looks like. Shame on you for that. You were just desperately trying to find something positive to say about this for reasons that make no sense to me.
Tom Beasley of Flickering Myth. Doesn't reinvent the superhero wheel perhaps as much as you might hope, but this is an engrossing and entertaining dip into an entirely different corner of this universe.
No, it's not.
Look, if you want to say some positive things about this movie, I'm prepared to accept that there's positive things to say that I may have missed or that certain more nuanced discussion might lead to. Fair enough. The last thing this movie is engrossing.
Jennifer Heaton of Alternative Lens. Compared to many of the big-budget X-Men films with their bombastic scale and lack of respect for the source material, The New Mutants is competently made by comparison.
What?
No.
Lack of respect for the source material from the previous X-Men movies? I mean, I'm sorry, unless the only thing she's considering is Apocalypse and Dark Phoenix, which we've already buried that pony and shot it in the head.
Yeah, that is a shockingly ignorant take to have on anything that isn't Apocalypse or Dark Phoenix.
Tessa Smith of Mama's Geeky. Mama's Geeky. Rain and Danny bring the heart, while Ileana completely steals the show. Every character brings something unique to the story, and fans of Marvel Comics are sure to enjoy it.
No. Okay, so wait, your takeaway from this is, yay, the lesbians bring heart, and the raging bitch is the embodiment of the Yas Queen meme?
She's a fan of the X-Women line.
Look, I don't... Look, my only issue with them being lesbians in this case was that it felt shoehorned, not authentic to the characters. My biggest gripe. And I've made my case about Ileana already. I'm not going to rehash it here.
Jason Gorber of Slash Film. In a world where normal seems very abnormal indeed, to experience something middling feels surprisingly refreshing.
What?
Yeah.
No, seriously, that was not a shock, isn't what were you thinking? That was a genuine, I did not understand that sentence.
That's a badly constructed thought.
Sean Chandler of Sean Chandler Talks About. If you
loser.
If you ever wanted The Breakfast Club as a horror film set in the X-Men universe, you now have it. It may not fully live up to the potential of that sentence, but I had a good time with it. Good for you.
Please allow me to flip that bastard off.
Look, if the only thing you have to say about it is I had a good time, fair enough. I am not going to unduly criticize the fact that you... again, if you found some joy in it, fine, fair enough. I'm not going to crap on that or what it says about your... what it might indicate about you as a person, because it really might indicate very, very little. But trying to justify it as anything beyond I enjoyed it, no. Just no.
And finally, Jorge Loser of Espinoff. Full review in Spanish. It may not become a cult film, but it is a solid adventure film.
It's... No. God,
No.
no. Do you, moron, not understand what an adventure movie is? Fundamentally, it involves going on an adventure. These people are in...
Is of scenery.
These people are in the same place for the entire movie. This is not an adventure film. It is by definition not an adventure film, you moron.
All right, later on tonight we will do a review of Bill and Ted Face the Music. Tomorrow is the source material for the Demon Bear saga. Plus we'll have a review of Payback, the second pay-per-view in a row. Like, all right, give it a rest, WWE. I need a break.
You get no breaks.
Alexis and I will be doing a source material for Bill and Ted Save the Universe on September 2nd. And then...
You woke up your Alexa.
And then Thursday, myself and Sean Comer will be doing a Long Road to Ruin for the first two Bill and Ted movies. You can check out reviews for the one and only Ivan, SummerSlam, and Unleash the Archer's Abyss in the archives. Go ahead and check that out. Alexis, what do you got going on?
Well, Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic. We're getting things ready for our big Labor Day sale. Everything's going to be 20% off in our shop. We've just added a bunch of brand new products. Really excited about that. Fans of Avatar: The Last Airbender, be sure to check out our new White Lotus earrings and ribbon choker. Really had fun designing those. Fans of my personal favorite holiday, Halloween, coming up. We have our new Halloween 3 Season of the Witch hair barrette. I had so much fun designing the masks on that. We are also in the middle of working on getting some of our products into shops, not just here in Kansas City, my hometown, but all over the country. I will actually be taking a week-long stay to Tennessee next week for family reasons, and I am currently working on contacts with some shops, see if maybe they'll be interested in buying our stuff in bulk. So really hoping that after Labor Day, I have some news about other places around the United States where you guys can find my work. As always, our shops are open on Etsy and Handmade at Amazon, and you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Under Duress Twitter. Honeysuckle Rose Creations, the intersection of geek and chic.
All right, Robert, take it home.
All right, you can find my full report for this Saturday's UFC on ESPN Plus 33, 34 event. One of those two. Not a great event, especially down the stretch, but, you know, watching Robbie Lawler fight in 2020 is just depressing anyway. The wars have caught up to that man, and who can blame him? Anybody who goes through his fight with Roy McDonald and then immediately bounces into his fight with Carlos Condit, that takes a toll on any human being. But, yeah, he's probably about done. And I fully expect him to suck up the oxygen in a ring with Johnny Hendricks not too long in the future, when some shill of a promoter desperately tries to convince you that either man is a quarter of what they used to be 8 years ago. You can also find me hosting the 411 Ground and Pound MMA podcast, where I reviewed that episode and previewed the upcoming one, which doesn't even have a finalized bout order yet. We just know the main event is Alistair Overeem and Augusto Sakai. So I did the best I could with the fights as listed because, again, no official bout order yet. It's kind of an irrelevant point anyway because I'm sure by the time we get to that event actually happening, it will look nothing like it currently looks now on paper, such is the state of the world. But if you're interested in the sport of MMA or some larger combat sports in general on occasion, you can find me there hosting that. Mark already mentioned we'll be back later today with Bill and Ted Face the Music. I have exactly 2 good things to say about that movie.
Oh, good. I get to be the positive one again.
Well, I'll be more positive about that movie than I was about this one, I think in no small part because I haven't seen either of the other 2 Bill and Ted movies and came into it expecting to dislike it. So
Robert, I would expect you to be more positive about a brain tumor than about this movie.
It depends on the tumor.
I'm a tumor. I'm a tumor.
I knew it. I saw it coming.
All right, folks.
It's not a tumor.
That does it for our review of X-Men, rather the New Mutants. For Robert, for Alexis.
Oh, hang on.
Ugh.
Do I want to go into this?
No, considering I was about to end the show.
Yeah, we forgot to get... We kind of wanted to touch on maybe the thought process of how Marvel might actually integrate the mutants into the MCU, but...
Ugh.
I did actually want to bring that up, but I didn't get a chance to earlier, and then we started moving on, and I
asked you if there was anything new else you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, and I had a brain fart. I'm sorry. But no, the show is clearly over. We've been talking for an hour and a half. It's clear Mark wants to go. So I am willing to shut my trap and let the show end.
Okay.
Yeah, it'll wait. I don't know why I only remembered that at the last minute, but it amuses me to troll Mark a little bit on occasion with stuff like that, so
Terrific.
it's a happy accident.
Be well, be safe, and behave.